Hello and welcome to our episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined in the studio by Scott Bradley from OneChronos. Scott, how are you?
Good, thank you. Yourself?
Very good indeed, thanks.
Excellent.
Very good indeed. So look, I've been looking forward to having you on for a while. Been following this sort of journey with OneChronos, and you've been over there for, well, coming up to a year now.
Yeah.
Exciting journey that we've got to get into. You sort of piqued my interest when I saw the story on the Nasdaq board before Christmas. I thought, right, let's strike again and get you on the show to talk a little bit about that, talk a little bit about the business and your year so far as the business has expanded and grown into new territories, new geographies, lots of exciting things around all of that as well. So we've got a lot to dive into today. Before we kick off in general, let's focus on you. Give us a little bit of your background on Scott Bradley, and then give us a little bit of background on OneChronos, if you would.
Great, well, thank you very much for having me. I've been looking forward to it as well. So, Scott Bradley, I'm the CEO of OneChronos Markets UK. I joined the company at the end of January last year, but my background's always been in execution services, as you know. So, coming up almost 25 years now in various.
It's my 25th anniversary in recruitment.
Yeah, I saw.
Saturday, so.
I saw the was it a rugby or an away day?
Yeah, that was a sevens tournament right at the very start of it all. So.
Yeah, fantastic. So a similar sort of tenure, coming up 25 years, various roles within execution services. I started out in sales trading and execution trading, moved into distribution roles and ran distribution at electronic trading desks, various banks, brokers, for about 15 years. And then I had 6 years at the London Stock Exchange Group, where I was responsible for business development and marketing and sales activities for the secondary markets business at LSE and Turquoise. All of which has provided me with a lot of opportunity and experience to hopefully bring together to bring the expansion plans for OneChronos, which is currently a live ATS in the US, over to the UK, and along with my colleague Adam Sherlock, who is running the business out in Amsterdam, a pan-European offering. So very excited to talk more about that.
And lots of, as you say, lots of different skill sets that come together on that, lots of different backgrounds that come together to make it a really well-suited role for you. So tell us a little bit about the company as well.
Yeah, so OneChronos, fundamentally, we're a technology firm. We are a technology company that is a specialist in optimization, and we do that through leveraging advanced auction theory. But OneChronos has decided to deploy that in the capital markets as our first product, which is a US-based ATS. So as you know, an ATS is a dark pool, dark venue, and we do that through the use of a periodic auction mechanism. And then on top of the periodic auction mechanism, where you treat time as a discrete function, we run periodic auctions roughly every 10 to 15 milliseconds. We overlay that with a new market model that we've brought to capital markets, which is looking to solve for a different type of benchmark. We look to solve for maximum notional price improvement that can be achieved by matching buyers and sellers together. If you think back to what a traditional auction model looks like, well-worn model over 200 plus years, it's typically a price, size, time priority where speed is important, speed matters. We have no concept of a queue priority in our model, so speed is taken out of the equation. So through looking to solve by a combination of size and price, which forms notional, looking to solve for that notional price improvement achievable, taking speed off the table, we democratize access to liquidity through our model. It's been a successful launch, an incredibly successful launch. We're a hyper-growth model. We launched in October 22. Probably ranked somewhere, down to number 40, 42 in the list of FINRA ATS alternative venues. And over that period, we've seen fantastic growth and great tailwinds of support from both the buy side and, importantly, the sell side.
Yeah, I saw some of the numbers. I mean, they're hugely impressive, aren't they?
Yeah, it's been a great growth story so far. So we started at number 40, 42, and I think our latest FINRA rankings show us inside the top 12.
Fantastic.
Now, what does that mean in terms of numbers? Well, we have a really solid subscriber base of members. circa 90 members, 55 of which are direct subscribers into the service. The rest perhaps use an aggregation service or white label to come into the service. And that means that we're currently averaging in November last year somewhere just shy of $5 billion notional traded on a daily basis.
Yeah. That's phenomenal, isn't it?
Put that into context in Europe, it was the same size as many primary markets.
Yeah.
Now, the US is a much larger market, so we need to compare apples with apples here. But as a...
2 years in, it's not...
2 years in, fantastic growth, fantastic support. In fact, we reached a record high of $6.7 billion average daily value traded in Q4 last year. Now that's about 105 million shares traded, crossed. So super growth story, fantastic support from the industry and the community in the US. And that's really meant that we're now able to look to bring this model over to new geographies. Bring this smart market model. A smart market is a term that's used a lot more in the press now, and really it just defines a market model that leverages mathematical modeling. And the smart markets that we're looking to bring to Europe, we're looking to launch through, subject to regulatory approvals, launching an MTF both in the UK and in Amsterdam.
And two great places to be doing it at the moment as well. So
absolutely.
It's really interesting that but we were talking beforehand that both you and I have done some stuff both over here and in the US and gone across both. Regulations are obviously very interesting over here and over there, and have their separate challenges in both areas. There's lots of businesses that have sort of globalized and expanded at various different phases. This is a really interesting sort of piece for a business that's gone very well, as you say. Those numbers are phenomenal out in the US. What gives you the confidence that the same thing happens over here in London and Amsterdam? Yeah,
look, it's a great question, because the market structure, the landscape is very different now. A lot of the core subscribers that we'll be looking to onboard for a European expansion will be very similar to and be the same firms that we have in the US. So fantastic tailwind, superb. So fantastic tailwind from our current supporters and buy-side investors as well. But it's the outcomes, the results achieved through leveraging advanced auction theory. It's a process called combinatorial auctions. Having that market model, looking to solve for a different benchmark, that notional price improvement that can be achieved, the greatest notional price improvement. Overlaying that on a periodic auction trading mechanism, which itself democratizes speed, plus a feature where we look to buffer for stale data, means that we achieve superior outcomes in terms of price reversion metrics. And that's a really important measure that the sell side looks at for their smart order routing, best execution, smart order routing decisions. And we've had evidence from our participants, from our subscribers, to suggest that the outcomes achieved when trading on the OneChronos ATS are right up there, best outcomes, if not best equal outcomes, versus all the other ATSs that they trade on. So the results that are being achieved through trading on OneChronos are speaking for themselves, and those are fueling the excitement and the interest. And also, I think the market landscape in Europe is crying out for some genuine innovation. Yeah. The volumes are muted. We hear a lot about a requirement to try and make some changes within the primary market, within the other areas of the capital markets in Europe. But within secondary market trading activity, volumes are struggling. And so seeking liquidity is a challenge, and bringing true innovation to the marketplace is something that gets talked about an awful lot. Now, personally, and my view personally, is that quite often a lot of people are perhaps talking about progression rather than innovation. Now, if you're fundamentally employing the same workflows and you're just achieving small changes or gains, but continuing on the same path, to me that's more about progression. And progression is fantastic, we need that. But innovation is where you have a game changer. You have something that takes you in a different direction, brings a new model to the market, brings a different type of outcome, looks to democratize access to liquidity to the end investor in a way that isn't truly being done so currently. To me, that's more about innovation. I think the market's ready for it.
I think that's really important. And democratising is a word that I think you're hearing more and more over the last 5-10 years or so.
Yeah.
Because it's a very different market, isn't it? When you think
Very
about
much so.
it being the sanctuary of the big boys. If you go back, 15, 20 years, and you talked about speed there beforehand, that was an advantage that blew most people out of the marketplace, right? Because it was money talks and money equals speed effectively, and those sort of things, and it made it an unfair playing, playing circle or whatever, that sort of stage. Right now, through opportunities and innovation like this, it does mean that it's a completely different market. It does mean more opportunity. It does mean more democratization, easy for me to say. But that's a great opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm. You're right. I mean, there has been a huge concentration of liquidity amongst a smaller number of participants in the marketplace over the last few years, which is what you were alluding to there. And that has partly been through the cost of barriers to entry.
Yeah.
And that is because of technology requirements, regulatory requirements, IP and speed is really at the forefront of that. You're absolutely right. By taking that off the table and removing it from the equation, it's about quality over speed.
Yeah.
And that's an important phrase that I'll be certainly talking a lot about over the go-to-market phase of our journey. Quality over speed, by bringing together buyers and sellers of all types, shapes and sizes. I've talked in the past about the changing face of the customer. And what I mean by that is some of the household names that were perhaps more prevalent in the marketplace 10 or 15 years ago are much less so now. And there's a different type of participant in the marketplace, all of which add a rich value in the tapestry of liquidity in a different way.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how to create a playing field that, to your point, democratizes and brings a level playing field to the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that's what we feel we've managed to do by bringing a new market model on top of a well-worn periodic auction mechanism.
Yeah.
So the periodic auction mechanism is solving for segmentation. It's filtering for different types of client, investor base, subscriber, market participant, and then overlaying it with a new model that's looking to achieve something slightly different is producing those outcomes that we see.
Well,
but to your point, sorry to interrupt, but to your point, there are differences.
Yeah.
Now, one of the big differences being currently the ATS is a dark pool. We know through regulatory requirements in Europe, you can't operate a periodic auction as a dark pool. So one of the things that the team here is looking to do is bring pre-trade transparency to the OneChronos model for the purposes of the European landscape. So that is one important difference. And it's also a bit of a beta test as well. We will see how our model stands up to a pre-trade transparent regime because we haven't had to do that in the US. But thus far, the evidence, the empirical evidence is suggesting that we should still be able to produce those high quality outcomes, that quality over speed outcome that I've talked about.
I think it's a really important thing for you to have looked at when you do this. Look, you're 25 years into your career. You've seen various different elements of the industry.
Yeah.
And to make a play like this, there's got to be something there where where it has to, to take that sort of role on. I'm imagining, and I'm not speaking for you here, but to take that sort of role on at that sort of level has to be something there where you're saying, you know what, this does jump out. This is something which is exciting.
It's got to be exciting.
It's got to be something there which I think
absolutely.
can add that element of genuine innovation into the space. Yeah. And see something which I can see not just being a play here, but something which can change the markets a little bit further.
Totally. I've been involved in electronic trading for a very long time. I started at ITG working on POSIT. So that was one of the original dark pools in Europe. So electronic trading and looking for alternative liquidity opportunities has been within my DNA over that 25-year tenure. So you're absolutely right, finding something that's the next stage and being involved in that, having the chance to bring together an articulation of experience which spans sell side, venue, product, etc. doesn't come about very often. So it was an incredibly exciting opportunity that I'm very thankful for. But you're right, it's got to have something to get you interested and excited, because you've got to believe the story.
Yeah.
Because if you don't believe the story, you can't sell the story and bring the story to life. I'm very lucky. There's a phenomenal team in OneChronos globally, and it sounds odd to say that, no, globally now, because I think OneChronos was maybe a firm of something like 22 employees when I first joined, and I think we've just hit 35 now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the expansion plans are well afoot. We have a fantastic team in Europe, both in London and Amsterdam, and so it's really exciting.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's not only about the product itself, it's understanding the pain points and the challenges that the participants have with the current landscape and looking to try and solve for that.
Yeah.
Because you can only move as fast.
Which is a sign of any great technology. Well, what should any great technology should be doing in the space?
Absolutely,
I
make
talk about
things
this quite
easier.
a lot. Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of people who are creating financial technology products that don't necessarily need to be made.
Yeah.
It's either, as you say, it's or evolution rather than innovation.
Yeah.
And they do things there which sort of moves it into something, or it's a really interesting bit of technology that doesn't necessarily solve an issue.
Solving for the inefficiency of the gap, not creating product, putting it on a shelf and then selling it.
Exactly, and we talk about this on the show a lot. Is it cost reduction? Is it speed enhancement? Is it increased quality? Is it efficiency? Is it productivity? Where are the things there that something's actually going to come in there and create so much more value for in terms of what we're doing? And look, testament, you've got a great sort of blueprint from what's happened in the States. And I want to just go back to that story a little bit, because you said, look, 2022 is where it starts. I think
it's when we launched, So the sort of birth and origin of the company goes back and predates that, obviously, but actual launch as an ATS, October 22,
And the speed of everything that's happened afterwards has been incredible. So 2023, I think, is the Series B.
Series B, I think it was October 23.
Yeah.
We had a Series B led by Addition VC. So we're a privately owned VC-backed company with 3 co-founders originally. And that Series B was and it's very public, a $40 million Series B in October 2023, you're right.
Yeah, and then 24 it continues again.
Yes, you mentioned it. You said you saw a post around
always love the
on
NASDAQ.
the NASDAQ billboard. No, very exciting to wake up and see that. Yes, that was expansion capital that OneChronos took on again from Addition VC for $32 million, which really helps turbocharge that expansion plan that I talked about, bringing the smart market model to new geographies, UK and Amsterdam, for a pan-European offering, but also multi-asset. I talked about OneChronos employing its advanced auction theory, combinatorial auctions, optimization, logics in capital markets. But that's its first product in equities. We are looking this year, within 25, to launch the same smart market model, but for FX.
Okay.
And that will be a spot FX product offering. And also go further afield to launch within fixed income as well. So these are all exciting plans that are roadmapped for 25 and beyond. And then the model itself could potentially be deployed into other areas and other silos, even outside of capital markets. But that's probably a conversation for another day.
Well, we see so many of those companies now starting to recognise that, and there's companies that are rebranding recently, around technology that works in its. I think financial services is always going to be some of the most interesting and complex problems there are. So if you can get it working within that, the scalability of it afterwards becomes really exciting.
Well, it's one of the most heavily invested areas. If you think about US equity markets, the huge investment over time into the electronification of that market, you overlay that with the regulatory landscape and the challenges and requirements that are must be met in order to participate in the equities markets. If you're able to demonstrate success in that market, then it's a great bellwether indicator for the strength of your model, for sure.
And this fantastic track record in the US is then sort of backed up by this great expansion, from some of the investments that we've heard about before, and the expansion capital. What does it look like in the UK for you? What are you excited about? What can we expect to see? What are some of the timescales? What does 25 look like and beyond?
Well, as I said, I joined the end of January last year, and then over the course of 24, started to build out a team in London. And my colleague Adam Sherlock, who is doing the same in Amsterdam, been building out a team there to form a pan-European OneChronos team. We've been working very hard on pulling together regulatory applications, so both with the FCA to launch as an investment firm for the purposes of running an MTF, and the same with the AFM in the Netherlands. Those are very robust processes.
Yeah, I can imagine,
You really need to know your business.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared and put the work in, which we have been doing. Those applications, I can thankfully say, have both been submitted. They're both sitting with the regulators now, and we've started. Well, we've started the next part of the journey, which is the continuing relationship and dialogue with the regulators as they look to go through those applications. So we're working hard in that regard still, but in parallel we're now focusing on build out. Actually, those little changes and nuances to make it appropriate for Europe, we're working on those currently, whilst at the same time working on go-to-market. We've got that fabulous tailwind that we talked about, but we need to make sure that the subscriber base, the potential members here, are understanding of our product, and it's on people's roadmaps as well. These things take time. We are not in any way, shape or form suggesting that it's an easy lift for anybody to launch a new venue and for a firm to onboard to a new venue.
Of course.
Having been on the sales side for so many years, I know what it's like.
Yeah.
So really part of what myself and the team are looking to do is make the journey as smooth as possible.
Yeah. Remove
as much friction from the process so that onboarding OneChronos becomes as seamless as possible with the least amount of resource required from our clients.
I think that's such an important element, isn't it?
It's huge, hugely important.
Because the actual sort of element of a startup full stop is as you mentioned there, and getting the regulation in place and having all of those sort of things ready. That's tricky enough, and there's time and process that needs and runway that needs to be factored into that. But you're quite right in saying that it's got to be seamless for the client as well, because to have people there and invest their time, effort, and money into going through a process that's full of friction, that makes it difficult for. It's not an easy thing to make that sort of thing easy as well for the client. No,
but that's where two things. One, I can draw upon the experience of the fabulous team we have at OneChronos and in Europe.
And evidence across,
We've all got experience of having done this from the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
But also the tailwind of support from global banks, brokers, in the US and their underlying investor base, their client base, means that you bring the two together, and we can learn from experience, learn from the challenges faced in the US, and we can hopefully get things right in Europe.
I think that's. I was in New York last year, talking about the lessons from T+1, and actually, whilst when it comes over to Europe, what we can actually pick up from that, and how one can pass the lessons over to the other after that. I think that's a really interesting sort of take, because whilst there are obvious differences in terms of how both countries run and the regulations, etc., to have that sort of try before you buy, almost that sort of ability to understand some of those pain points, the ability to work out what works out. That gives you just this incredible advantage.
Yeah, if you don't learn from your lessons, then it's an opportunity wasted.
Yeah.
And that's really going to be our focus, is to try and help get things as right first time as possible.
Yeah.
Things don't always work out, but we can certainly try hard to do that, to make the process as smooth, because we don't have a right to be on people's blotters, a right to be in people's smart order routes. We need to earn that. Hopefully a combination of a fantastic model with great results, and the experience that has been achieved through the US launch can help some way to get us our foot in the door in that regard. But excuse me, certainly that's an exciting Q1, Q2, whilst again subject to regulatory approvals. We go through the applications process. So really we're looking for potentially the end of H1, beginning of H2 for a sort of launch period. All being well, that would be the sort of time frame where it would be looking at. And look, with any product launch, it's about pitching it correctly. And we'll be looking to bring the kind of, I guess what I'd call an MVP, the minimum viable product, to Europe, to try and win hearts and minds and get into people's workflow before looking at some of the more dare I say it, exciting, advanced product which we've just launched in the US.
Yeah, well, that's an exciting. That's the beauty of this opportunity, and the beauty of having someone like you in charge there. Your network's extremely well established over here. I know you've been already out and about, and at various different events we've bumped into each other at various different times as well. And it seems like there's an appetite for it, as you've said. You've been speaking to people and sort of laying all this sort of stuff out. You don't want to go too early with it all until everything's in position.
Yeah.
But this has got to be a winner, right? In terms of where you sit and what you look at, and really, really exciting.
I said to you when you asked me about something that grabs interest and is exciting, and it goes back to what I was saying there. I think everybody at OneChronos really believes in what we're doing, and that's a really refreshing environment to be involved in. I think we need to try and learn from the lessons of the US onboarding process and the launch. And not try and run too fast with the product launch in Europe.
Yeah.
So as I said, we have some really exciting product that's just launched in the US that takes the auction theory to a next level. That's gaining traction, and it's gaining a lot of excitement and interest in the US, but it's potentially something we would look to bring a day two and beyond in Europe once you manage to prove yourself and get into a workflow.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to win a space in somebody's smart order routing logic, and we don't take that lightly.
Yeah.
So we're going to work hard to earn our place.
I think that's important you mentioned that as well, because the temptation can be have this all singing, all dancing, let's pile everything in, let's be everything to everyone, etc., etc. And you see that quite a lot at companies where they're saying, like, there's so many shiny things here, let's do it.
Yeah.
I find that sort of the MVP sort of idea of going out there and being really strong and really robust in what you can do here, and then adding on products and delighting afterwards. Yeah. That's a really important part in the process as well.
Absolutely, because what you don't want to do is make things difficult to get over the initial inertia of onboarding and coming to market. Yeah. So those products that I've been talking about, they really build on this advanced auction theory and optimization logic that we operate. Talk about this new model, solving for the greatest notional price improvement, bringing buyers and sellers together. Well, we do that because this new product is able to work because we run all of our universe of securities at the same time. So we run a single auction, a single auction cadence, and have all of the universe of securities uncrossing at the same time at the same periodic time frame. And what that means is we're able to look at contingent trading. It's something we call expressive bidding. Expressive bidding is where you can actually overlay your trading requirements or overlay your order flow with trading requirements. Think about linear programming functions, if, and, or, when, would. You can overlay things like pairs trade or a portfolio reoptimization or an index rebalance. Those types of trading styles and strategies, you're able to do so within one single periodic auction because we're running the whole universe of securities at the same time. And our optimization logic within a 30 millisecond, up to 30 millisecond window is able to take into account all of those trading constraints. Yeah. And make that call as to what is the best combination to bring buyers and sellers together, taking into account these trading constraints in order to achieve the greatest notional price improvement, first principles, best execution for the user. Now that's where the logic gets really exciting. But again, something that we're not looking to launch day one in Europe. Yeah. Let's onboard and come to market with absolutely get into people's workflow and win hearts and minds, which is no mean feat in itself. Definitely. And then look at day two. Yeah. The other product I should probably just mention is Nexus, which is a concept of private rooms where you can create your own ecosystems of trading counterparts, and you can control your counterpart engagement in the US. And decide who you'd like to interact with and when. So imagine creating a waterfall of ecosystems where you can cascade between those ecosystems and expand the universe with whom you would like to trade with and when progressively as liquidity avails. But again, all within the same periodic auction. across a whole universe of securities that are all uncrossing at the same time, taking into account all of these trading constraints. That's the real nature of combinatorial auction theory, something that's never been brought to the market previously. That's where a lot of this excitement comes from, about where the future of the product can go. Europe, just reiterating, no, day
step
two,
by step.
Step by step.
I love. One of the things I've always enjoyed about
and subject to regulatory approvals.
yeah. Terms and conditions apply.
Absolutely.
But what I was going to say is that one of the great pleasures of this podcast that we've been doing is over the last 4 or 5 years, just speaking to people and sensing that enthusiasm and sensing that excitement. And I was speaking to you before you joined the business and where you've been, etc. And to see someone who's found something there that's as exciting and potentially game changing as what you've looked at there, that's a really good position to be in, and such a different role for you to move into as well. And that's exciting in its own sort of sense. And, new skills, bringing all of the skill set you packed in beforehand into a different environment.
Absolutely. I think I was joking with you earlier that I've become a bit of a pseudo expert in workplace pension schemes and health insurance policies. Yeah. These are all areas that I never had to look at or think about previously when running a franchise within a larger bank or an organisation. Running a distribution business, you're very focused on a very narrow set of requirements, but actually having to work on building out a business and the infrastructures that are involved in that, building out a team, which has been the most exciting part of the journey so far, to be honest. The pulling together of a team that is really fantastic. They're all new skill sets. Yeah. They're all new lessons that I've been learning, and now it's the perhaps my more well-worn path of go-to-market strategy that we're going to be focusing on over Q1, Q2. Yeah. But absolutely, it's an articulation, I mentioned it before, of all the different experiences and networks. You mentioned that too, which has been hugely important, drawing upon the experience of others who are much better placed or have a better skill set.
It's a good teamwork of people around.
Absolutely.
And that's the key to it.
Yeah.
Scott, I could be talking about this forever, but I know that we're running short of time, so I'm going to leave it at this, and a great story to tell with it. Finish off by telling us where people can get in touch with you. What's the best way to find out more about OneChronos? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
So the best way to get in touch would be drop me an email, scott@onechronos.com. Very happy to talk more about smart markets with anybody who'd like to understand more.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Scott, thanks ever so much for coming in.
Fabulous.
And thank you all for joining us. We will see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.